Okay, before we begin, make sure that you subscribe to the channel for new content that we are uploading on here every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Also, don't forget to like our videos, bookmark this channel, and also check out www.djtcell.com.
Your name IDK stands for ignorantly delivering knowledge.
Yes.
Hello and welcome back to Statistic TV. It's your boy T-Cell, and today we are back for another edition of Cell Reviews. And today we are reviewing the one and only J.I.D. who is releasing his brand new album. I guess it's his debut album. I mean, I assume this is his debut album, but apparently it's probably his third or fourth release. Now, his mixtapes run was probably what gained him a lot of notoriety. Subtrap and I Was Very Bad was very well received. Subtrap actually getting him interviews on Sway's Universe, as well as Hot 97 with Rosenberg. I Was Very Bad was probably his best mixtape that he has actually ever put out. Then he put out IDK and Friends, which included collaborations from Denzel Curry, Wale, as well as Rico Nasty. Now, coming to this debut project, this album features the likes of J.I.D, Pusha T, Tyler the Creator, and much more. Right off the bat, we like the album title doesn't really give away a lot. Is he real? It could have been talking about anything, but what we end up finding out is it's talking about God. In the first track, Cloud Blue, I personally gave this an 8 out of 10. I personally felt like he done a great job setting up the premise. The use of the child, who I believe was white, he does suggest a lot of naivety, like to recite what he thought of what happens after death. And this naivety was soon turned into shock horror as the child demonically, sonically sounding demonic, was to reveal that he actually doesn't believe that God is actually real, so none of it's about to happen. So immediately he served the context of the fact that this is that he's possibly an atheist. From that premise, you won't listen. So if you're kind of very religious, or who not really that open-minded to a lot of new beliefs, this might not be the project for you. And him setting out this kind of stamper from the first track, I believe was done very well. That's why I gave him an 8 out of 10. 4,200 choices, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I didn't quite understand the direction. The first few tracks really caught me off guard. I didn't know what premise it was kind of setting up. Blue is pretty much just a transition, kind of a skit from the first track where he got back, where he uses the vocals from not really vocals, but a skit from DMX, which pretty much suggested like baptism kind of way. Kind of goes back to his childhood, probably when he got baptized himself, and it unleashes a series of events. I personally gave this a 7 out of 10, to be honest. It's just a scare. Like the foundations was still being laid here. Alone was probably the one track that didn't really capture me that well compared to the other tracks. Gave it a 7 out of 10. 24 was 24. I also gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, coming from Alone, you can kind of understand the mentality behind 24. At first glance, it was actually an okay track. I was actually ready to give it an 8. But after reading some interviews, after watching him explain the track a lot more, saying that it was actually based on Matthew 6:24, which is basically you can't serve God and man at the same time. So you can't serve God and money at the same time. It made me think, why couldn't he have conveyed this message over in the track? This was a very big demerit for me because I didn't actually hear any kind of that reference, and I don't think anyone would have actually received any kind of idea to suggest that this is actually Matthew 6:24. It's as if he was hoping that you were continuing your train of thought from the first track. I enjoyed the track. I felt that like the beat structure was great. I felt like there was a lot of vibe with the track to set the tone for what he was actually talking about in terms of serving God and mammon at the same time. And with a bit of context, I guess you can kind of see what he was talking about. I just wish he brought more on the track. With Lily, I actually gave this an 8 out of 10. Now there was a lot of vibe to this track. It was very groovy, but easy to get into, and the story within it was quite an interesting one. He fell into extreme hedonism due to a choice that was made by a girl that he was seeing. He kind of reminded me of the mixtape series that he done. I believe it was Sex and Homework. I believe it was that mixtape back in 2014 where he actually made a phone call. I believe this was the 4th track. I'm not too sure, but he made a phone call to the girl that he was seeing at the time, and on the phone, the girl picked up and said, "I'll call you later." So, but in the background, they were having sex. So with this, he was shocked, and she hung up. I don't think she knew who was calling. She just wanted to put the call to one side. I mean, I would question why on earth anyone would want to pick up the phone when they're having sex, when they are in mid sex like that and enjoying themselves. But this seems to be the reference to that first mixtape that is brought back here, and because of him experiencing that, he kind of now treats women more like hoes and doesn't really let anyone get close to them. So because of this, I personally thought it was a great setup for Porno. Now, Porno, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Personally, the rapping on this track took it out. Not just the rapping, but also the vibe. I wasn't quite a fan of the sonics that was being used. I felt like could have been a lot more groovy, could have been a lot more R&B-esque. However, the hard gritty also works with it as well, especially with the fact that, well, for one, I gotta give him props. The fact that he was able to get Pusha T to not talk about coke for once is actually quite incredible. J.I.D, impressive performance. The bars on this, for you to have J.I.D and Pusha T on the same track and to hold your own, is quite impressive as well. I think J.I.D.K really came into his own on this track right here. There's a lot of philosophies that was also brought out on the track which you wouldn't expect to be brought out, especially with the fact that he's talking about him being exposed to porno when he was actually 6 years old, I believe, being exposed at such a young age. Who is actually to be blamed from that point, especially from a philosophical point of view, whereas God obviously is against the sexual pleasures, lifestyle, sexual immorality. So if you're being exposed to that at a young age, I should say, should God actually hate you? These kind of questions have been brought up, and I'm gonna be breaking it a little bit more down into the philosophy of this album in my podcast that's coming out next week, and I will talk about it there. But moving on with the review, I gave this a 9 out of 10. Make sure that you subscribe and also hit that bell notification, select all, so that you can be notified when I do actually drop that video. It was called I Do Me, You Do You, and it featured Tyler, the Creator. This is pretty much on the back of Porno, where he begins to ask a lot more philosophical questions, whether he believes whether he believes in God or not, and where he is at, whether he believes in a higher power. And this is where we kind of get to the crux of the album, where we kind of dive deeper into what he really believes in. So on here, we actually learn that he does believe in a higher power, just not in the conventional God that we know of. And the story unfolds more and more from there. Now, December is actually an interesting one. It features Burna Boy in it, and at first it was quite hard to get into because he set up such a great premise for a story. Then he goes back into talking in regards to a woman yet again, and how she made him feel. So I was beginning to theorize, but in the end of the track, we get the idea that he's really confused about the lifestyle he's heading into. December turns out to be more of a metaphor. Again, I want to break this down now, but I can't. It was a very good nod back to his mixtape days, where he used a lot of references, referencing Shakademus with Murder, She Wrote. That was the reference that was being used here, which I thought worked really well, especially with the inclusion of Burna Boy. European Skies is where I believe the album really reaches its climax, I guess. I mean, it's building up to the climax, I should say. If not reaches it, it's building up more and more now, because this is where he actually now starts to criticize the belief system that he grew up with. Again, I gave this an 8 out of 10 purely for the story. The instrumentals were also good for setting the tone up as well. Allows the message to be received quite positively. Well, quite critically, I should say. Like that if you made this far, you're gonna listen, and he doesn't really hit you hard. It kind of softens the blow a little bit to just to make you think and question what it is that we call religion. No Cables, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I didn't really. Maybe it's me. Maybe I might need more on it, but I felt like this was a bit of a disconnect from the story that he was building up from European skies and December. I felt like this was a bit of an outlay, like to just to bring this in. Not that it was a bad track. That has some good messages in there. Just the fact that it just came out of nowhere. I felt like this would be better served as an earlier track. Probably after Alone, this would have been good there, in my opinion. Digital, I gave it an 8 out of 10. This was basically showing the transformation that he went through from becoming the bad guy that he was, that went to jail, served jail time, and now he's becoming a good guy. Michael, what TF? I gave it a 7 out of 10. I didn't actually know that Jasmine Sullivan actually wrote on this track as well, but she's got focus on here. This track was also an effective segue to Julia, because Julia is basically the next track I'm gonna talk about a bit more, but it's a good segue because this explained his tumultuous life before his mother passed away in 2016, I believe. It's really when he started to make his changes in his life. Gave this a 7 out of 10. It was quite abrupt. It was mainly because of the instrumentation, but I know why it was there. Simply because it needed to set the tone. It needed to give you that impression, that feeling of how aggressive and abrasive he was back then. I do think he sold this well, in my opinion. Julia is I gave this a 10 out of 10. Simply flawless. Told a great story of how his mother died of AIDS, and when you compile all of this information, like as being heartbroken by your girlfriend, being sent to prison 3 times, and the 3rd time that you were sent was because you missed the payment on your house detention, and he was sent to do 3 years, I believe, in prison. I believe, where he was taking his craft very, very, very seriously then. Now, for you to go through this, it would make you question your faith, and it did bring him down to that path. And in the end, the way that he closed off the track was actually quite masterful. It kind of brings a very, very well-balanced perspective to the whole entire argument that he set up from the start, and the use of science against itself, like making you think, before we go on this side and say, yeah, God isn't real, like I have done, let's consider this perspective. For him to play devil's advocate like that and to turn on his head to show that he's actually not against God, he's actually for God at the same time, and he's just making us think, to question our perceptions of reality. This is what I'm going to be talking about a lot on the podcast, to try and dissect this track, because I love it when tracks like this are being produced. That's why I love this album so much personally. Overall, 108 divided by 140, which is the final score for the entire track by track review. Quick maths, and this ends up being 77%. So overall, they, based on each track that I've been through, 77%. I personally felt that this album is a great piece of work. The concepts behind the album create a lot of talking points. Now, I do have to say this: the verdict to this just does have to be said. If you're not attentive to this album, it's gonna fly over you. I believe that's what my scoring system actually showed to me, because I don't think I even agree with the fact that in the end the results that I got was a 77%. I really feel like I'm missing something when I was actually reviewing this, just doing a quick review just based off the fly like that. Overall, the album, it wasn't perfect, but at the same time it wasn't even that bad. It was actually a masterful piece of work. There is a lot in that album that you just can't listen once. it begs for replay value. This album has tons and tons of replay value. Personally think recommend it. I personally recommend that you should really go out and get a vinyl copy of this album and just enjoy. If it's available, guys, I think it's only available on CD. I personally think, but if it's available on vinyl, get it. I think it is well worth the investment. Thank you so much for checking out this review. I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comment section below, what you think. Let me know whether you hear love it and whether IDK is gonna go on top right after this. I personally think that the guy has got a bright future ahead of him. I binge listened to all of his projects since, so the guy has got definitely something about him, in my honest opinion. I think he needs to be a lot more consistent now. This fellow IDK, his head seems on the right path. For you to get the talents that you have got on this album is amazing. It shows you how talented he is. Also watching the interviews as well, like him just last year he was doing interviews with various YouTube channels, not really big as well, just small YouTube channels, just doing interviews with them. Please come over here and do an interview with us, please. Once again, thank you so much for checking out this review, and see you on the next one. Peace.